So, parliamentary procedure, what we're going to do today is walk through it's just kind of the basic things. As you can see on the agenda, it just says, and I don't have mine here. Anyway, we're going to go through some basics, then some common mistakes and things of that sort, and then we'll have time for questions, test your knowledge, and then time for questions at the end. So go to the page that says who needs it. I think it's on the back of your first page. Parliamentary procedure is designed to facilitate business, not to complicate it. And often we think of it as just complicating, but it really is designed to facilitate, to make things better. So remember, it's logical and should make sense. If you begin to learn the rules, it will begin to all fit together and make sense. 2, it doesn't have the force of law. I mean, usually I would imagine in the rules for the convention, it will say that our parliamentary procedure will be Robert's Rules of Orders newly revised or some such, or the 10th edition, or it will state somewhere in the rules that Robert's Rules is the presiding authority. But it isn't a law, it's just a process, okay? So as the convention moves forward, the chair will try and abide by those laws by those rules just to facilitate business. And so if someone sees that the chair is doing something out of order, they just call attention to it. They go back and do it right, because it's just a process. It's not like you violated law. And if you have any questions, if when you get to the convention, you're not quite sure what to do, you can ask people at your table, or it's perfectly appropriate to go to the microphone and say, point of information, and ask your question. You know, I want to know how to make a motion, or I want to know what to do in this case. You can just go up and ask. It's called point of information, and you just ask the question. So don't be afraid to get help. I'll go quickly how it all began. Originally, the name for the rules governing the English Parliament, informally used in early American societies, and in 1876, Henry M. Robert, that's why they're called Robert's Rules, compiled basic rules in a pocket manual, and the rest is history, okay? Basic main motion, and I put this in here as a whole slide all of its own, because as funny as it sounds, sometimes people really do forget that what you say when you make a motion. Like they'll say, I motion, or some other thing, and all you say, a main motion brings business before the group. The proper way to make a motion is say, come on, I move. I move that we have pepperoni on our pizzas, or whatever. I move is the proper terminology. And then this next slide again is pretty basic. A member makes a motion. They say, I move that we have pepperoni pizza. Another person has to second it so that the chair knows that there is more than one person interested in doing it. And maybe I should move my coat. Here's one more chair.
They have some chairs up in the front there.
Oh yeah, there are chairs here in the inside if you want to come around. And I'm hoping we're going to have more copies. Lots more. I don't know that I told them to bring this in.
Let me know if you need more chairs and stuff. I can definitely come with you guys with that.
Okay, we probably should get more.
Okay.
Okay, so somebody makes a motion, has to have a second. Then the chair restates the motion. The chair says, okay, the motion before us is blah, 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 blah. And then the board, this slide says the board, but in this case, the convention body will debate it. And the convention will have specific rules about how that's done. I don't know what those are, but generally speaking, large groups like the convention will say, we will take someone in support and then someone opposed. And often they will have the microphones identified that way, for and against, so that you know which microphone to go to. I don't know that they will do that at the convention, but there will be some way for them to allow you to come and participate in debate. So anyone can go up. Generally, they ask that when you go up to speak to a motion, you say your name and where you're from. So you'd go up and give that information and then begin discussion. And often, Robert's Rule says that in large bodies that you can only speak twice to a motion, so that gives everybody a chance. And sometimes in the rules it will say you have to exhaust anyone who wants to speak the first time before you can have your second time. So you'll want to look in the rules of the convention to make to find out what their parameters are relative to how often you can speak. I'm not going to go into that here. And then after you discuss and debate, then a vote is taken. Okay, now we get into some things that are a little bit more complicated. So look at the one that says possible action on a main motion. Should be page 4 if yours is numbered the way mine is. And for those of you who don't have one, there are more copies coming. Okay, amendments. How many can you have at a time if you're looking at this slide? 2. You can have 2. So you can have an amendment to the motion. Okay, we make the motion, we're going to have a pepperoni pizza. Then you can say, I move that we change it to ham pizza or, Hawaiian pizza. And then somebody says, well, I think I want to make a motion that it be Hawaiian pizza with a thick crust. So that would be 2 amendments. And the chair can accept up to 2. But let's say you want to say, well, I want olives on it too. That if you were to say, I move to amend that we add olives, the chair would say, we already have 2 amendments on the floor. We have to dispense with 1 before you can make your motion. Okay? So it doesn't mean you can't ever get to another amendment. It just means you can only do 2 have 2 that are kind of live at the same time. Anybody who doesn't have a copy, raise your hand. We'll see if we brought it up. I don't know. And if you don't get a copy, I'd be happy to email you one. Oh, you have a question? Okay, go ahead.
If you want olives on the pizza, should you withhold that or should you say it?
Oh, you should wait until after they decide if it's Hawaiian or pepperoni. They get back to where there's just 1 amendment to the main motion, and then you can make it. Okay? So you only have 2 amendments at a time, and often it's referred to the amendment to the amendment. Okay? So you've got 1 amendment, and you can have another, but you can't have an amendment to the amendment to the amendment. Okay? Clear as mud?
So you
Go.
wait. You can, though, wait until those amendments are passed and they're considering the motion as amended and then attempt to amend again.
Absolutely. You only have to get rid of 1. If you get rid of the second amendment, then you can make another one. Okay. Refer to a committee if you decide things are bogged down, which I don't imagine this will be all that useful at convention because, that would mean that you would report out at the next convention, but that's a possible action. Lay it on the table, and I want to spend a little bit of time on this because that's a temporary action. So you'll hear people say, I move to table, or I'd like to table it. There's a little Robert's Rule peculiarity that if someone moves to table at this convention and it isn't taken off the table before the end of the convention, then because the convention doesn't meet for another year, it would automatically die. All right? So if you want to do something temporary, I move to table and we'll bring it back sometime in this meeting, sometime during the convention, then you can do that. If you really want to postpone it till next year, then what you want to do is move to postpone. Okay? So there are 2 ways to postpone. One is table, which is temporary, should be brought off the table in the same meeting. Go to Debbie.
I don't know that I've ever heard anyone make a motion to postpone at our district or our state convention. Motion to table happens all the time, but we never take it off the table afterward. And I think that was the maker of the motion's intent, was that it never be brought up again. But that's interesting that you're pointing that out.
And if you're not aware of that, it can seem like we're just going to do that later, and it really has killed it. Okay? Is this making sense? Anybody else? Debbie?
Unless later on you or someone makes a motion.
Brings it from the table. I move to take from the table this issue. Okay? Go, Debbie.
I don't want to take everything, but I would
It's
say
okay.
that unless you have some reason to believe that the will of the body has changed, like maybe you've talked 40 people into your way of seeing things, there's no reason to bring it off the table unless you think you've got the votes there to be successful that time around.
Good point. But remember, like we talked about, Robert's Rules is supposed to facilitate and make it easier. And some people really will point this out down on this next slide. It's a tool, not a weapon. Some people want to use it as a weapon. And it's supposed to really just be to facilitate the business. Okay? So, lay on the table is a temporary motion. Take from the table is how you get it off. You just go up there and say, I move to take this issue from the table. Postpone is, where you want to put something off for a specific period of time. It's better to postpone to a date certain. So postpone to the next convention, or postpone till some specific time. Reconsider is if, Debbie?
I'm sorry, but I know that the motion to table is non-debatable. How about the motion to postpone?
I was going to talk about that when we get to special motions, because on the yellow paper that will be a little clearer. And again, I'm sorry that some of you didn't get yellow papers, and I will be happy to take it. I'll pass around a little list to get an email list, and I'll make sure you get one. Yeah, let me finish this up first. Okay, postpone, and then reconsider is if, after something has been done, it comes to the attention of, and in this larger group, would have to be to a lot of people. You sense that there are a lot of people concerned, that you would call for reconsideration of something that happened previously. I move that we reconsider an action that was taken. You have to have voted on the prevailing side. So you have to be somebody who thought it was a good idea. You can't just call for reconsideration because you opposed it and you want to try again to kill it. You have to have voted for it, and you could move to reconsider a previous action. I would think at a convention as large as this would almost never be used, but I wanted to point out it is a possibility. If new information came to light and a large group of people wanted to reconsider an action, you could, okay? But you'd have to have enough votes, because in order to reconsider, it takes, I think it's 2/3. Let me just double check. Yes. Reconsider, nope, just requires the majority of the body that says they want to reconsider. Okay, let's go on to special motions, and then I think we'll get to what Debbie was talking about. Special motions, these are things that can be done to the main motion and its amendments. Okay, so these are kind of special things that can happen. Closed debate. Often you will hear people say in a meeting, I call for the question. And I've seen it a lot in meetings where somebody says, I call for the question, and the chair immediately moves to a vote. Okay? No. This is really a big deal to call for the question, because it limits the rights of the minority to debate. All right? So in order to close debate, because a call for the question says, I think we should end discussion of this. In order to end debate, you have to have a 2/3 majority. So if somebody says at the convention, I call for the question, the chair is going to ask, is there any objection? And if nobody objects, then they will move forward. Or all those in favor of ending debate or closing debate or some such thing as that. And then you have to have 2/3 of the body that say they want to end debate. Because, there might still be people that want to talk about it. And if there's, more than a third, then they could. Okay? And we'll talk about that a little more as we go through. Point of order or point of information, if you have a question, or you think there's been a violation of basic parliamentary rules or rules of the convention, let's say something that's written in your convention rules, the chair forgets and makes a mistake, you just go up to the microphone and say, order, if it has to do with the rules, point of order, or point of information if you have a question. Okay, that's what those are. Suspend the rules. Any of the rules of the convention could be voted to be suspended, but again, it takes a 2/3 majority. There has to be a majority of the body that say they want to suspend the rules. And I think that happens very rarely because people want to respect the rules, but it is possible to say, for example, a convention I attended recently, there was an emergency resolution, and they don't have a process for emergency resolutions, and somebody said, I, move to suspend the rules.